How life changes so quickly. After saving all of these airplanes, it was bound to happen sooner or later, and now it's happened to the 310. They told me that this airplane 20 years ago suffers the same ailment that the Silver Bullet has, and this one was not able to be saved. I knew when they called me and told me I had to fly all the way back up here from Florida to come see what they found in person. That's never a good thing. Before I show you what they found and what I'm going to do about it, I need to tell you what happened. I got this airplane from Clint, who found it in a barn after sitting for a lot of years in pieces. He spent about a year getting it back together. He flew it a few times until his life got busy, and then it sat for another year after that when he gave me a call asking if I wanted it. Of course I said yes. Then Silas, Clint, and I spent a few days finishing it up, getting it flying again, flew it 3,000 miles across the country. And I knew that it wasn't perfect. These engines, they like a quart of oil every couple of hours, and it has a couple of dents and dings on it, but it's a 70-year-old airplane. But what I didn't know is what they found, and I didn't realize just how dangerous this airplane actually was. And only 2 weeks ago, I listed this thing for sale on Airspace Auctions because I bought this that's sitting behind it. Go up and see if you can take a look at that. Yeah, it needs a couple of things, but we'll get to that in a minute. But before I sold it, I wanted to make sure we had TAS, the #1 twin Cessna shop on the planet, go through it to make sure whoever the new owner is gets a very good airplane that was looked at by the best of the best. Also, just a quick shout out to Twin Cessna Flyer. It's twincessna.org. That is a fantastic organization. They helped me before I even bought this airplane and about all of the stuff that we ran into, fixing it up, getting it going. If you don't know them, check them out. Go to twincessna.org. It's a great group of people. Also, on a side note, there's been 4 very good, very experienced airplane mechanics that have been through and over this airplane, and they are finding stuff that all 4 of them missed. That's why they are the #1 shop of twin Cessnas in the world, because they know exactly what to look for, because this is all they work on. While we're waiting on him to get over here to tell us and show us what they found, we're going to check in on this thing. And I see they had to do a repair up here. They found some corrosion up here. And what little bit I can see, it is looking very nice. They also had to take this exhaust part off from the turbocharger here. If you ever wanted to see the inside of a turbo, this is what it looks like. This is the hot side. The exhaust comes out of here, goes in here, makes it spin, makes that spin, which sucks in more air that then pushes it in. This was a very dangerous part of the exhaust that caused a lot of issues. So we have that sent out to the shop, and we're gonna get to go check it out so we can see how they inspect it and how they make that part right there and why it cost $30,000. Not making that up, it's insane. The other really expensive part is this over here. Let's see. Oh look, they got a motor on the hydraulics to test the gear. It's up on jacks right now so they can swing the gears, because we don't want to have the same thing that actually happened to me on that airplane on the way up here. They should have inside here. Oh, they got it ready to come out. Okay, so this is the heater right here. We're gonna be taking this out and going to the shop and watching them how they actually rebuild one of these things so that it lasts another 10 years, and also why it costs $10,000 to $12,000 to do it. That's gonna be a pretty cool video. Yeah, man, they got this thing torn all apart. Oh, here's the corroded piece that was on the back. See? The corrosion just ate it away. Wow. Yeah, look at that. Right here. just gone. But I'm glad they found it and they're taking care of it now before it caused any real serious issues. When I go out to look at all these old airplanes, the first thing I look at is corrosion, because that's the one thing that will kill an airplane. Can it be fixed? Sometimes no. Sometimes yes, but always a huge amount of work, way more work than anything else. And you can see just how destructive it is, and it's cancer. It's literally just a cancer that eats it away. And sometimes there is no repairing it. Man, I really hope that that's not the issue with that, because they did say they found some, and I knew that it has some corrosion up there because in the nose and under the seat area. But man, I just hope it's not that. Anything but that. Tell me the engine is blown up or something like that. I mean, that's any of it would be bad. So, oh man. All right, let's go find somebody that can show us what they found. I'm here with Daniel, one of the lead inspectors here at TAS, and he was the guy that looked this thing over and said, hey, Marla, hey, Tony, you need to call Jimmy and have him come down here. So without further ado, walk us around, show me some of the stuff you found.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can just start out with
we'll start here and then work our way around, I guess, yeah.
Okay. One of the biggest things you noticed starting out on this one was some of the motor mounts on this thing. I'm sure you saw.
They're all new.
They're new?
Yeah.
Well, whoever installed them, I don't think put the lock tabs in quite properly.
No, we couldn't, because this one kept snapping off, and that's why we put the torque stripe on there. Well, that one's got it on there.
Yep, that one does.
There was a couple of them. Yeah, we had to put a torque stripe on there because the stupid things kept twisting when we would get it to torque.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So the little lock tabs, I think we noticed those weren't bent over. Unfortunately, with this model, because the side cowl is like this, typically these will unscrew and just come off of here. But with this one, it's riveted on for some reason, these older 310 models.
Yeah.
So it makes it a lot more difficult to do that.
Pain in the butt.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't like it either from a mechanic standpoint. So there's just a few cracks cosmetically around here we can take care of and things of that sort. Let's see what else on the engine. I think there was an exhaust riser on the inboard side that we suspect a crack. Likely what we'd end up doing is pulling the exhaust off.
So one of these right here?
Right.
Okay, I think, Silas, here, come over here and go ahead. Suspect a crack, because we had one the other side. One of these we did have a crack all the way around it.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, right here, because you see the white? Is it that because you see the exhaust coming through?
Likely, yeah. I don't remember which one offhand without looking at it again, but yeah, I was up around one of those flanges. That's typically where they end up cracking. So,
okay.
Like I say, we take it off and pressurize it, make sure, and then repair or replace as needed. Yeah. I'm sure these aren't.
Could be this one right here.
This style, I'm sure, is not easy to find nowadays.
You know, BAS had a full set out there, and then the other one we actually just had to have it repaired. Had to send out to a welding thing, and they were able to repair it. So.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Other than a few minor oil leaks, I don't think there was anything else crazy with this engine, thankfully. No cracked cylinders or anything like that, as far as I can remember.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So otherwise, good bones.
All in all, not too bad up here. Okay.
Yep. One interesting thing we noticed was this prop seal back here. There's typically two metal retaining rings that hold this crankshaft seal into place. And this case does not have it. So the other engine does have the screws, it just doesn't have the retainers or the screw receptacles. In this case, they're not even present, so we're not going to add them.
Really?
But that is...
Oh, yeah. Is it just because this is a block that's so old that it was before they did that?
It's possible, yeah. Tony would probably know more background on that than I do, but yeah, it's not one that I've seen like that before, for sure.
Well, there you go. First time for everything. I'm sure this airplane's got many firsts for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Like I say, I think on the engines I think it was the other side that had the spar issue.
Whoa, a spar issue?
There's one spot where somebody put a screw basically a little bit too far in through one of the panels, and it's just been chafing on the upper spar. So it's not like a spar replacement is necessary.
Okay. Yeah, my heart,
no, yeah.
I'm like a stomach drop. Spar issue. I was like, no.
For sure, yeah. It's cleanable, fixable, no problem. Actually, one other thing, I think it was on this engine. Yeah, you can see it right down in there, is the engine beam. Something has been sitting right there and chafing on the engine beam.
Are you right under the motor mount?
Yep, just about.
Oh, I see. So if you see, boy, that's hard.
Yeah, it's a hard one to look at. There's a good spot.
Here, yeah, you see that little divot right there? Yeah. I think it was, actually I know it was, and that's what we moved, was the oil line.
Okay.
Came around and there was a clamp or something like that. When we replaced it, we noticed the same thing. Stuff was rubbing, so we rerouted it, moved it over.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's common. We'll find them laying on there. Thankfully, because this isn't a turbo, when there's damage to the top strap like that, a lot of times they can be repaired. The tolerance is very small on a turbo aircraft because of 2000-116, that AD.
Oh yeah, the exhaust AD, which is the whole $30,000 exhaust on the other airplane.
Right.
Because, yeah, now my understanding is what would happen is it would rub through that hot exhaust. The fuel lines are right there. Mm-hmm. They would burn into that, catch fire, melt this wing off, literally, right. And the wing would fall off and then everybody would crash and die.
Yeah, not what you want.
That was a bad day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, bad day.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, boss man.
Okay.
He had his whole list. Like, that's a monster list, and that's very small type, double-sided, and he's got a few highlighted in orange that I'm majorly concerned about.
There's some very minor fuel leaks on the bottom of this tip tank here. Nothing that we can't fix, of course. Underneath here, some coming through. I think you said, was it you that wrote up that it was overflowing a little bit from the top cap on the bladder?
Well, it only happened once.
Okay.
And it was when all 4 tanks were completely full and it was in the hangar overnight.
Okay.
So I don't know if the heat and expansion pressurized it up and it leaked around the bladder, but then we did notice that there was some leaking out of here and onto the floor. It wasn't a huge amount, but definitely. And it's only ever happened that once.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, in full disclosure, I don't leave it parked with full gas tanks ever.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Well, like I say, nothing there that we can't fix by any means. So, on this wing, I think the first thing we noticed when we were doing a walk around is this upper wing skin patch right here, or crack. So, on this side, probably what we'd end up doing, I don't remember exactly how we wrote it up. Either you could splice this whole piece of skin here, or just lay a patch over top of it. Of course, this being an airplane that's as beautifully polished as this is, it'd take a little bit more time to get the patch polished up to match.
Sure.
Yeah, but because this exhaust is a little more forward, it makes it easy to get access to that. So.
Okay.
Let's see. Do you want to touch on the tail?
Yeah, because I still don't know what you guys found back here that you can see, because I did not.
For sure. Yeah. So on the leading edge, this is some filler or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Walking up here, you can start to see this stuff flaking through here. So.
Oh, right there's the crack. Oh, that's the actual layer of the aluminum.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Beginning to corrode through all in there.
Okay, so all clad, or I forget the name of, there's a layer on top and then you have the pure aluminum underneath.
Yeah.
And that's what this is. So this is the hardened, or whatever what do you call it? The mix of metals.
It's like an alloy or something.
Alloy,
Yep.
yeah, that's the word. So there's an alloy on the outside, and then you have pure aluminum on the inside, but this is actually corroded through and cracked right here. That's what you were talking about.
Yes.
And what's funny, I mean, you got a dent right here. Here, Silas, come down. This has been here for a real long time. There's a couple of dents. But that right there, you can see, oh, yeah. Can you see that? Oh, yeah, there you go. Oh, wow.
So what we'd like to do is end up going in there and basically reskinning this entire leading edge.
So this hole from this line all the way to that line?
Yep.
Just the entire thing?
And checking the condition of the ribs and everything underneath it too. So
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Huh.
we peeled a little bit off of there too. We could see it bubbling through. So
Yeah.
it probably didn't look exactly like that when you were doing your walk around, but
Because I was wondering, I was like, I don't remember. I mean, I remember a couple of spots like this that were patched over and things like that.
sure.
But yeah, no, that makes sense. And that, as easy as that peeled off, yeah, that, okay.
Yep. So that's the big thing. on the tail.
That's kind of a big deal. Now, it doesn't mean replacing the entire tail section, right? It's just a skin like this, right?
We may, depending on, because you have to re-rivet all this in here. So I'm pretty sure we may have to take the entire stab off of there to get it sent out for reskin, I think is how we wrote it up. So we'll end up doing the whole thing, repolishing it and stuff like that, just because you got to be able to get your arm in here to rivet that, right? So that's what that's looking like. Finding a replacement of this style tail, I'm sure, would not be easy anymore, and an entire piece. So reskin, we figured, would probably be your cheapest option.
Okay.
But
yeah, that definitely needs.
That's the estimate that they're working on right now, is getting that
Yeah.
for you. So.
Okay. Well, that's a bummer to, find that. Okay. All right.
One teachable moment, this is one thing that Tony always talks about in his seminars and stuff, are these trim horn screws right here. You may have heard of these. So a lot of times we recommend that if they haven't been changed in a while, or especially if they're painted over, they're not painted over in this case, of course, but we like to see these replaced just about every annual. The reason for that is...
These 4 screws here?
Yes. Yep, the 4 screws and the nuts underneath.
Okay.
The reason for that is water gets down into them and they rust, and they'll eventually break off. Sometimes we pull them out of there and there's threads missing and they're completely rusted through. So...
Oh, okay. Yeah, because these clearly have not been changed in a minute.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So it doesn't take a whole lot of time. It's not a huge deal, but it is something safety related that we like to take care of every time.
Okay, minor safety. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Okay. Any tail gonna fall off or anything like that?
No, thankfully, structurally.
And just standing here.
Yeah, the glare. I know. As I was inspecting, I'm walking around with my flashlight and blinding myself constantly. So, yep.
And we're not gonna show Sparrowhawk all of the fingerprints that are on this right now, because they would just have a heart attack.
Yeah, they did a good job, and we did our best to try to keep that off of there, but we'll polish it up too when it leaves. But okay.
All right. Okay. So far, nothing. I mean, this could be a really major deal.
Yes.
So our options with this are basically finding an entire another tail section, or pulling it off, having them change out the whole front of this thing, and then have to put it all back on.
Yes.
Not a small, insignificant thing to do.
Unfortunately not. No, that's quite a bit of work, yeah. So.
Nikes. Okay. All right. Okay. And that's not the worst thing, though, is it?
Probably not. One of the bigger items, but no, I think the nose probably.
I know. I've been waiting to go up there. Okay. Anything inside here that was found of significance?
One thing that might be interesting to look at. Let me crawl in here and see if I can see it. I don't know how camera healthy it'll be exactly. One of these cables was chafing through this rib here. So these cables, of course, run your flight controls, and they have pass-throughs through some of these bulkheads and stuff like that. So this one is, it's not as though the cables misaligned, but over time as they run, they'll start chafing through the metal. And so on that other side, you can kind of see where the cable's chafing through the bulkhead. So we just like to go in and clearance that a little bit. You might have to get to the other side to see it real well, but
that's fine. And that's kind of important, because if that cable breaks, then that's also a bad day.
absolutely.
Okay. All right. Okay. So far I'm pretty optimistic. So far this sounds like a good airplane, minus the tail thing.
Okay. I don't think there's anything else crazy within the
I
cabin.
had a question for you up in here, though.
Absolutely.
The black scat tube right there
Yes.
on both sides, there and there. that was my concern with getting that replaced because, well, I guess you can't see it from there. But, oh yeah, and back here, the corrosion that those things cause.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not really right there.
I think there's a little bit underneath that one up in the nose I remember seeing.
Yeah.
If you're looking for corrosion there.
Yeah, okay. But that, you saw that and it's not too bad, or it's just needs
Something
to be
we'd like to
cleaned?
address, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So we may have written it up as taking that entire nose out. So that environmental hose runs up into the nose, of course, and connects to the heater or the air that comes in.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times we'd like to replace those hoses because as they deteriorate and stuff like that, it's starting to let air through, and yeah, they'll cause moisture and have them corrode like that. So
Okay.
definitely something we'd like to address.
All right, okay. Okay, but otherwise in here, everything seems to be fairly in order.
Yeah, there may have been some minor things, but I don't recall anything major.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good so far.
One more wing skin crack right there, similar to the other side. This one's a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
So same deal. There's a rivet that's corroded off right here. So,
Yeah. Now, you didn't pull the augmenter tubes out, did you?
We did not, no.
Okay, because I do know that on this side right here, and that was on my notes, there was a rivet that was corroded through.
Okay.
And so there would be a small repair needed right there.
For sure.
And I wrote that up.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get that taken care of for sure.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the tubes weren't cracked or anything like that as far as you can see looking in there. I know you've had those off before.
A couple of times, unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, but yeah, just right there. And kind of the same story as the other side, just a patch there and or, I mean, this would be,
Yeah,
you're not
that
gonna
is a bit
replace,
of an
so just
extreme,
a
so we'd
patch.
quicker just to, put a little overlay on it, so.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And then, of course, auxiliary tank sending unit gasket has a little leak there and
Yep. Yeah, there's
stuff like
a
that.
number of minor little things, nothing that's can't be fixed.
Okay. Well, I mean, this so far is pretty positive. I'm waiting for the brick.
For sure. We can go there if you'd like.
I don't want to. All right, let's go.
Okay.
Well, anything different than the other engine?
I don't think so. There were
Same
some
story.
similar stuff. Yeah, some wiring like to see tied up and things of that sort. I think there may have been a little bit of. Oh, actually, what was on this engine, and we sent you some pictures, I believe. There's a little bit of rust within the cylinders that we noticed during our borescopes.
I didn't know.
Okay, so I don't think it's something that we. I don't know, Tony. Is that something we were going to do anything about? Yeah.
Oh,
So-
yeah, because are all these are not all chromed cylinders. Some of them are. Oh, only, okay, 2 of them on this engine are.
Yeah. So we'll get you those pictures. You can see inside of them a little bit better. But
Okay.
there's something we noticed. Otherwise, I don't think there was anything major. I'm trying to remember. On the other engine, there was a little bit of corrosion on some of these primer rails and things like that. We'll just change those out really quick. But over here, you can kind of see what I was talking about as far as the retainers. Same deal in this engine, but this one, as I say, does have the screw receptacles. So
Rebuilt, one of the engines was 1976,
okay,
and the other one I think was 1979.
gotcha.
This
Okay.
one has about 1,700 hours on it, or 1,800 hours. It's a real high time engine. And then that one I think is about 600 hours or something like that.
Okay,
But it's been a long time.
yeah. Considering the age, it's in relatively good shape. So
Okay. All right. Okay. Well,
okay.
so I know that there was up here somewhere.
Yes. So on these older style 310s especially, the nose being open, they have a few different places of things that we like to look at. So corrosion's a big deal. There's a few spots within there that we'd like to get touched up and clean. We can show you. The major thing on the nose, unfortunately, is 2 pieces basically on the center spars that run out on the nose. And right on the top of them, they tend to crack around the edges. We call those the keels. And both of these ones have been cracked in the past, have a homemade repair put on top of those, and then the repairs themselves are cracked.
Gosh.
So
Okay.
we'd like to do a little bit more of a comprehensive repair on that for sure.
Okay. So does that mean like the nose is going to fall off of it, or it's just going to get bent or buckled? Is that why I've seen some of them that are buckled a little bit, is because it cracks right there?
I imagine it can't be good for it. I'm not sure exactly how does that
Oh, okay. All right.
Tony can explain that more in depth.
So-
He's got the crash history.
So basically the main supports that hold the whole front of the airplane have cracks on them.
Yes.
Okay, and they've been repaired, but those repairs are also cracked.
Those have also failed, yes.
Okay.
Yep. Oh, I was just going to say, I don't know, we can get down there and take a look at it.
Yeah, let's see, and you have to be kind of skinny and you got to go in like this in order to get up in there.
Yes, the big thing with the older 310s that I'm not a fan of is they do not have the access panels that would normally be right here. So yeah, for inspecting and repairing anything like that, you're basically shimmying up in here like this.
Yeah. Okay, so these are the keels right here, right?
They would be a little bit more forward right about there.
Oh, holy crap, that is cracked big time right there. Oh, wow. That looks like kind of a terrible weak point right there.
Yes, I believe on the newer ones, they ended up putting a bit of a beef up that wasn't on the earlier models.
Wow. So I'm assuming the same on that side over there? Oh, yeah. Oh. Oh, man. Yeah, that's... Oh, and that patch that's over it's like... Really? That's like just a little thin piece of sheet metal. I'd want to put something thick.
For sure, yeah.
Oh, hey, there's a data plate right there.
So, yeah.
Okay, that's not good.
We'll end up going in there and putting something a little bit more robust. But you can imagine as the port sheet metal guy, probably end up being me, that is going to have to shimmy into that nose to rivet that off and then, or drill that apart, and then put a repair kit in there. So
what is the patch for it? Is it just another piece of metal that goes over, it's a strap that goes over the top of it to hold it?
basically, yeah, some overlays like that, and they kind of wrap around the side and hold it.
Oh, okay, that's why.
Yep. I believe they had kits for that at one point that you could get, but I don't know how readily available those are now.
70 years later.
Right.
Yeah. Huh, okay.
So,
And my understanding is that's not the real hard pill to swallow.
within here,
Yeah.
I think that was the bigger thing. We've got
Wasn't
side
it
braces.
The bulkhead corrosion.
Oh, there was some of that, yes. Yep. Those are related to the environmental hoses you were talking about within the cabin. Since they run from your heaters right under here within the nose, so those environmental hoses run back in there.
Yeah, you can kind of sort of see them from down here.
Yeah, let me see. Let me shimmy right
Now watch here. Come over here and watch this guy get in this thing.
All right, now I will try to shimmy up in here. All right. Okay, yeah, so you can see a lot of corrosion back here by the, it's basically up in this area. I'll let you get in there. By the parking brake pulley, and there is an environmental hose that runs back in here into the cabin. So fairly common spot for there to be corrosion, but again, because of the limited access, it's a bit of a pain to get to. And likely on this other side as well, behind the heater plenum.
So where that black hose goes right there, quite a bit of corrosion.
Yeah, especially right behind it as that the hose is touching the sidewall of the nose skin.
Okay. So that is the corrosion where that hose goes in there, and it's the same on the other side. And this is what I was talking about in my notes. In the camera, it's kind of hard to see, but the discoloration behind that black hose right there. Yeah. So, oh yeah, and it runs all the way up along that hose. Look at that. Man.
A little bit of external evidence of some of the corrosion that's starting in there too is a few rivets that are, the heads are corroded off right here along this rib.
Wow. Okay.
So,
Oh yeah, right here. Look at that. Look. Oh, they're totally gone.
Yep.
And over here. Okay, and so then the fix for that is what? What's the fix for that?
The fix is going to be someone like me having to shimmy up in there. We'll end up pulling the hoses out, basically. Those are, I mean, those may be original hoses as far as we know, so they're very old.
Yeah.
We'll take those hoses out, we'll make new ones. While the hose is out, we will clean up that corrosion as best as we possibly can, put corrosion treatment on it, and then replace the hoses with something new.
Do you think that all this bulkhead metal is going to have to be replaced?
I don't think so. Like I say, when we get in there, we can get a better idea once we get it cleaned up of how deep it is and the extent of the corrosion. But at the moment, no, I am not suspecting that that's the case.
Okay.
We may have to take out the heater depending on how far it goes forward, just again for access and making sure we get it thoroughly cleaned up. Because if you do a sort of a half job, it'll just come back, you know.
Yeah.
So
Okay, well that's not as That's not as bad as what I was thinking, because what I was told is that worst case scenario, that entire bulkhead has to be replaced, and up to 700 hours of sheet metal work essentially is what it would take. Well, 700 total for the airplane and probably 600 just for this.
Okay.
Is that worst case scenario?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, worst case scenario. If you get in there and find that it's worse, you start cleaning the corrosion off and realize it's deeper than you anticipated or it covers a wider area, then yes. I mean, that is the probably the worst case scenario you could imagine.
Yeah. And my understanding is that old 320 that's rotting away on the side suffered from the exact same issues.
Yes. Yeah, these older style 310s, 320s, that's a very common area for that to happen, and has doomed more than one airplane, unfortunately. So, never what we want to see, but it is common, unfortunately. So,
okay. Well, we'll see what that thing is going to be, and then the gear.
Yes.
What did you find anything? Is the gear rigged correctly? Does it seem like everything is good to go there?
A few things that we noticed. There's two big things, one on each side. In the nose, while we're right here, we noticed that the drive tube basically that runs from the bell crank back here all the way forward to run your gear is installed backwards.
Wait, what?
They have these.
What? Something was installed backwards?
It's still functional.
This thing right here?
Yes.
Okay.
So typically we like to see the long end of that facing inboard, basically.
I see. So this rivet right here, if you can see that, and then there's a longer part on that side of it. They should be on this side.
Yep.
Oh yeah, because you can see this top piece has the same thing.
For sure.
Okay.
The reason we like to see that, and it doesn't appear as though it's been a problem on this aircraft specifically, but sometimes it will start to rub on that side skin, especially on our models. And so we just like to see those switched around for safety. So
okay.
That's that there.
All right, fair enough.
Okay.
Any main gear or anything?
Yes, so the biggest thing on the main gear are the side braces on both sides. So we can take a look in here. I'll show in a little bit more detail.
All right. Because now I did know, and because of the group, that TAS is a part of the Twin Cessna.
Yes.
That is apparently a really common thing on pretty much all 310s, is having that side brace. There's a kit and a doubler type of thing that this is just my understanding.
Yes.
And about half of them have already had it done, and the other half not. Maybe that's what my research was, but
yes.
Go ahead.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, so I'm in the middle of a side base repair right now, actually. Yeah, I've probably done 5 or 6 in the past year. Very common on these. It's actually this rib right up in here. So this is your support rib. This piece right here is made out of aluminum originally. They tend to crack either up around this rib in here, right on this side. This one is cracked by this forging bracket bolt, so right up here. And it's kind of...
How the heck?
It's a bit of a subtle crack.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Here, you can barely... See, it's only because that's all these guys deal with that you can even notice that. See that little tiny crack up on the top? Okay.
So I can show you a kit in a little bit as well if you'd like. But what we do to repair these basically is we'll go in here and take all your gear components down so you can get some access. We'll take this old style torque tube out. We'll probably send that out for non-destructive testing to make sure those aren't cracked, because that's common as well, while we have it out of the airplane.
Old style. It's very possible it is original. This airplane only has about 3,500 hours on the whole thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Impressive for its age. So we'll go in here and basically unrivet this. This entire piece will come out of here, and the kit that we install is basically a really thick piece of steel. And we'll put that in there.
Oh, it's actually steel.
It is.
Oh, interesting.
So it will never crack again.
Yeah.
Or it would take a lot to get it to crack again. So that's what we replace that with.
Okay. Is the other side good to go, or has it got a crack in it too?
The other side, unfortunately, is cracked as well.
Oh,
so in the same spot.
Oh, weird.
And because of the placement of the crack, I'm more concerned about the angle behind the side brace, which is this right here. That angle runs all the way up forward there. So a lot of times when they crack by this 4G bracket, it's flexing back and forth, and the angle itself underneath there will crack as well.
Oh.
But you can't tell until you start pulling that stuff off of there. So
what does that mean if that angle is cracked? You have to...
it's a little bit more work. We'll have to replace that entire angle. So that's doable. But it is a little bit more time.
With enough time and money, I guess. Holy cow.
For sure.
Okay. All right.
Otherwise, thankfully, though, the spars are in good condition back here. A lot of times we look for corrosion up inside of these. The exhaust fumes, especially when the exhaust is running under the airplane, will collect in there and corrode. But they all appear to be in good shape.
Well, that's good. Okay.
We went to look at the spar up here on the engine too, I think, where that screw was going through.
Yeah, what did you find on that?
Okay, so it's this right back here, that panel there. There we go.
Oh, I know exactly which one you're talking about, because I had to replace it because I noticed, I'm like, why did somebody stick a long screw in here?
Right, okay, yeah. So you can go ahead and get up in there, I'll point it out. I'll just show him the spot real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Our other inspector inspected this engine, so he saw the spot.
It's right behind this one.
Damaged enough that we think we need to replace the spar or anything like that, but we'll try to smooth that out so it doesn't crack or do anything crazy like that. So, did you want to look at the other side brace? I think those are the main issues, the largest ones, and we can look at anything else you'd like, of course. But
I mean, no, if the other one looks the same as this one,
okay,
no, that's fine. So now I'm gonna switch the camera over there. Thank you for showing me all of this stuff and looking through that. So walk me through the biggest, what we were finding here.
Yeah, this is this environmental ducting that we saw up in here. It's a common problem in a lot of airplanes, but twin Cessnas in particular. This is out of another aircraft, a different aircraft, and you can see what the ducting looks like. It's like a
steel, all rusted.
Yeah, steel wire that supports it on the inside. It's got like a fiberglass cloth type cover over it with a string assembly that keeps the shape on the outside of it.
Some baling twine.
Yeah, it should.
Baling twine and duct tape, man.
It should look like this when it started out new, but it gets here, and the problem with the corrosion with it is that it has this steel wire that will start wearing through in spots, so the steel will lay directly against. If you see a spot like this, the loop will set out, and then the wire will lay directly against the aluminum, and you have dissimilar corrosion. You have some level of corrosion with water retention. Yeah, so you have, in fact, when it breaks and it sticks out like this, if it lays against something critical aluminum, it'll wear right through it. You can see in this case that this area laid against something right in here, and it lays damp all the time. Up in the nose, it's really it really happens a lot because this ducting comes from the heater, so it's warm, and the skins may be flying in the wintertime, like your last video where you were freezing to
death. That was
death.
terrible. 19 degrees.
If the heater was running, you would have like a 19-degree aluminum with like a 60 or 70 degrees ducting, 80 degrees.
Because it's just out in the open where all that wind
so
is
it goes in there and it never dries out. It just lays and it'll corrode. So at some point you have got to replace this stuff and go in and treat the skins and aluminum skins so that it doesn't do that. Maybe isolate it a little bit if you can in certain places. They didn't spend any time doing that. Cessna didn't when they built it. They just jammed it underneath of the floor. So we find a lot of ducting underneath of the floor, and up in the nose section it's bad like that. The other thing that'll happen up in the inside once we start pulling it apart is there's aluminum tubing running around in there. Brake lines with hydraulic fluid in it. You'll have fuel lines that goes up to the fuel pressure gauge if it's still there. You'll have oil lines that goes to the oil pressure gauge, and those will corrode really rapidly if they lay against that. And the next thing you know, you'll say, hey, I've got low oil pressure in my engine. You look, you don't have any oil. It's all run out of a pinhole in the aluminum tubing in the cabin. So once we get in there and start looking at it, that's only a 35 thousandths wall thickness, the aluminum tubing. It doesn't take very much corrosion for it to get a pinhole in it. Or you don't have any brakes went on landing because the hydraulic fluids just run out of it up underneath the floor section of it.
Wow. So what is your opinion on this? Because we've got the tail section that has that leading edge where it's worn through there, needs repair,
Right.
Which makes it not,
There's several options it could go and give it enough time and effort if you wanted to look at it. You may be able to find a used one that was in better shape.
Okay.
At a salvage yard or something. The unfortunate part about salvage yards at this point is that the airplanes are in the salvage yard for some reason, and a lot of times it's for the same reason your airplane needs to be repaired. Yeah. So the parts are all about the same quality when you get in there. We could repair this, we could repair the leading edges. We probably wouldn't do that in-house. There's a couple specialty places that repair them. But the level of repair with an airplane that's polished like this is really high, ratchets up a lot compared to one that we would have. That
you can't just throw some paint over it.
You can't throw some paint over it to have a few little mismatches and stuff and fill it and things that would happen. It has to look pretty good to match the rest of it. Now, you could elect to go in and paint sections of it and cover it like you did on the tips where there's fiberglass and stuff like that it's not polished. But it all takes extra time when you start doing that thing. The keel sections is real common in these early airplanes. If you start looking at the early 310s, a whole bunch of reasons it was just too weak to begin with.
Yeah, well, you can see it was just this piece of metal right there, right?
You can
where
also
the gear
see
hinge
that
was.
they probably have worked on this. Obviously there was a patch on the top of it, but you can see things like cherry rivets or cherry max rivets in here.
Yeah,
you can
see
some missing ones in here, fasteners and stuff, around where it was working before.
Oh yeah, all this whole other side is all just cherry
Yeah.
max rivets right here.
So they were working on it in here at some other point in time. So it was a little bit weak to begin with. The geometry of the nose gear makes it so that it puts a lot of force on it, because with it out like this, when you touch down on the nose gear, the force down here's aft, this piece is supposed to stay over center. So it transmits all the force back
right
to about
there.
right into this section into here, so it twists it. And they also, new pilots are training, if they're doing flight training at all in it, it takes them a while to learn how to land because the nose is so short.
Well, in your profile with you got flaps, you go in like this, you have to pull way back and have your nose way higher.
So it has a big propensity to have nose gear first landings as the pilot starts until they figure out that, hey, I have to start flaring early and I've got to get the nose up a lot more from that sight picture than, especially if they're moving from a single engine airplane that has a big engine and stuff out in front. So it is a little bit sensitive to have a nose gear, more likely to have nose gear hit first on it, as opposed to other types of airplanes with a longer nose.
So the big one on this is the tail is a big thing. The side braces are not unusual, not a huge issue, and the same with this up here. They're fairly common, not ish. It's the bulkhead corrosion on this that is the
Yes, yeah.
The Russian roulette.
Right, yeah. And
So,
it's hard, and all the things that are there are the hard things to get to.
which is probably why they haven't been done in the past 70 years, because everybody said, we'll just do that next year.
Yeah, or they haven't been able to see it. Now, obviously, they saw this up in here because somebody tried to put a patch on, but the patch is sort of an undocumented kind of like thing. It just shows up, and it wasn't really adequate. They did beef this up over the years. Like Daniel said, that as each year went along, they're a little bit heavier and heavier. They made the keels out of bigger,
for the different
pieces,
models
for the
of
different
airplanes?
models
Okay.
of the 310. Eventually, they started putting a doubler in there that was a steel doubler in it, and they made the steel doubler kind of short. Then in later years, they made the steel doubler even longer. So they were continually having trouble in that, so they kept rebuilding that as they went along. I had a FBO president call me from down south somewhere and said, "Can you damage a 310 by towing it?" And I said, "Well, yeah, and he said, "Well, our customer had an old, he called it an old 310, which I found out later was like this one in 54, and they 55, and he'd set the parking brake.
Oh,
And got out
and then they
walked
tried
away.
pushing it.
They hooked onto it. They was trying to push it.
Oh,
and it, literally, I
no.
saw pictures of it in this junction right here. It broke completely off
Oh,
with the tug. And
God, that's-
so this nose gear, this nose assembly is not very strong, and not strong enough to make it through the years that it's been going through without having it pretty much perfect as it goes along.
yeah. Now, have you guys ever had issue similar to this on another airplane?
Yes, lots of them.
And what happened with those airplanes?
We've repaired most of them.
Okay. Is this one repairable or not, or we're at on the
Anything's
spectrum?
repairable, Jimmy. Anything's repairable,
Yes.
okay? The issue kind of becomes is if this were the only problem and everything else was fine. If the tail was the problem and everything else was fine. If the side braces were the problem and everything else is fine. If the interior was okay and everything else is fine, it would be no hurdle. Or if they would have repaired those things as they went along. It's a matter of having like 6 things that
all
are really
of it.
bad. Yeah, it's like trying to fix your house. You know, the basement's flooded, the roof isn't any good. You know, it's all the wiring is now all shorting out, and the plumbing's leaking in the house. It's like such a big undertaking that it is not a matter of could you fix it, but is it viable to fix it? And viability is different from person to person.
Yeah.
On it. If a guy had a mechanic certificate, or was very had a lot of time, was you know, people build airplanes every year. Thousands of people in the United States are building airplanes. So if they would buy an airplane or get an airplane like this, and they would say, okay, I'm going to just restore this airplane, and they put it in their hangar, they work on it every day is because they're retired, or that's what they want to do, it'd be an easy start as a good repairable airplane. But you know, if you're going to pay somebody shop labor rate to do that kind of thing, that is puts it into a completely different kind of monetary frame.
Yeah.
So
How many hours do you think of just the metal work on this? Just the sheet metal work with the tail, with the gear, with the bracing.
Well, the side brace is going to run around 60 to 70 man hours to do the side brace. We'll look at another airplane. We have one. You've been hearing all the riveting in the background. They're putting the side brace in another airplane. We'll look at what it takes to kind of do that. So we can look at that thing. I would say, basically speaking, that you're probably looking at a couple guys, 3 full weeks, 2 people, 3 full weeks or so to do the sheet metal work. And we would probably farm out the horizontal stabilizer, unless we could run across a real good one someplace, a nice one that doesn't have a lot of damage and stuff on it someplace, and just change it out.
Yeah.
And it's not, the horizontal stabilizer, fortunately, I guess in this case would be, is not something that gets damaged a lot, because these airplanes go to salvage quite frequently because of a nose gear collapse. So the horizontal doesn't get damaged. So you may find a horizontal stabilizer. You're all over the place looking at airplanes. You know, you may run across a horizontal stabilizer that's in good condition. All you'd have to do is swap it,
Strip the paint, polish it. Yeah, maybe.
or decide to make the change and paint the horizontal stabilizer some.
No, we wouldn't do that. We can't do that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. So we know it's not gonna be making the auction May 10th, not even remote.
As is, right? But
as is maybe, but
Yeah.
not as an annual flying airworthy airplane. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. That's a bummer.
That's correct. I know.
Then my next question becomes, how dangerous was this airplane that I was flying it?
Probably your biggest possible concerns would it be the nose gear in it? It's
Collapsing if it had a bad.
Yeah, you had kind of a rough landing, or you went over a rough spot in it, or whatever. The nose gear collapsing would be would have been your highest risk, I believe, in it. The other corrosion and stuff in it, and maybe a main gear collapsing on to make a high-speed turn off, or it's crosswindy day and you're holding it up and you drop it down and it kind of makes a zigzag. They'll fail on the side brace like that as well. So those would be your highest kind of like risk things. But the corrosion, people ask me a lot of times, well, how dangerous is that? Well, I don't really know. Cessna obviously did not design it like that. And, so let me take a 2x6 and hang it out over the edge of the Grand Canyon, and you walk out on the end of it and take a saw and saw a little bit on it. So what is your capacity for when you're going to stop sawing on it and say, okay, enough's enough?
Yeah.
And so it's a call from what you've seen before. It's definitely not going to get any better. And unfortunately with corrosion, it gets worse exponentially quicker. So every year that you let it go,
I imagine
worse
being in
by
Florida
jumps of
doesn't
double.
help.
Yeah, being in Florida doesn't help. So it doesn't go away, and the causes of it is still there until you clean it up and fix it or replace some parts in it or so on. So that's the question you need to ask yourself is, okay, at what point do we pull the plug on this? And different people have different levels of risk. Or different mechanics will have different levels of risk.
So is that why the years and years of all the different mechanics and everything that looked this thing over and doing the inspections said, yeah, it's airworthy for another year.
Yeah.
It's airworthy for another year.
They will make, or we will make the determination that we look at the airplane and you look in the logbooks and the airplane's flown 30 hours last year, and and the owner a little bit, and you know how they fly the airplane. You say, well, it's probably not in a big risk factor, but maybe one Sunday afternoon, nice Sunday afternoon, like it was this weekend here in Northern Ohio, they go out and take their whole family and all the grandkids and stuff rides in it. And how would you feel to have all your grandkids in the airplane and have the nose gear, main gear collapse, or have the horizontal stabilizer, not break off, but just
separate right there,
split apart, or we really don't even know what the spar or the horizontal stabilizer looks like because you can't see that at all. So when you got something that's beside it that's heavily corroded, you always think about, well, the main structural part behind that could be just as corroded, but we don't know. We can't see it.
Yeah.
So
okay.
That's, you got a big bump on your arm, and you say, well, it's just on the muscle on my arm, but maybe the bones broke underneath of it. You don't know that.
Yeah. Okay. And I know that Marlo was working up the estimate and getting all this stuff put together. Man, and what kills me is on a good day, this airplane, value-wise in the market, is $75,000, $100,000 with the avionics update, and because it's polished and looks pretty and stuff like that. But oh man,
that the pricing is all on her. I just
yeah. So we got to go in there, and she said that she had to put more paper in the printer. Yeah,
it hurts my heart on these old airplanes that you'll say we need to spend 8 or 10 hours cleaning up various areas of little small corrosion on the airplane, and the owner would say, well, is it on airworthy now? Well, no, it's not on airworthy now. Well, I don't want to do that. Okay, I want to just skip that. So then you see the airplane again with a different owner 5 or 6 years later, and now you've got structural corrosion in it in the same areas that you would have asked them to clean it up, and now you're talking 80, 90, 100 man-hours worth of work to replace the structural part.
Well, that's the exact story as that airplane. And now this airplane. That airplane, you guys caught it fairly early in the thing. You're able to do kind of a minor just repair of that. And if that would have went on for longer, we'd be in this situation right here.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah, it never gets better. Don't ever think that something, by ignoring it, is going to get better.
Oh, man. Okay, so this airplane is definitely not going to be up for auction, and then all of the cost of all of the other stuff that we have to go into, and some of it we don't know. we don't know how much the tail is going to be. We don't know what the bulkhead nose corrosion is going to be till we dig into that. And it clearly, if I understand you correctly, is not going to be an annual because of the what is found there.
Right.
So
Even if we did the things like the keel repair and just the side braces and did the horizontal, you know, it's going to be more. It would take more calendar time than that date. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
By a long shot.
yeah.
Take a look at a side brace in process so you can kind of get an idea what it would take to have a side brace on another aircraft.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right.
So it's like I got mixed emotions right now. On the one hand, it sounds like we've been flying a safe airplane, a good airplane. On the other side, like he said, there's there's multiple major things that need to happen for this to stay flying. And I have a fear that when I see the repair bill, it's financially, it's just not going to make any sense whatsoever. So, but he's got his flashlight. Let's go check it out.
So first of all, this is the kind of the parts that are out of the airplane. This is like one side. There's the other side that come out to be able to do the repair in it. You'll see that what we're adding is some shim pieces, some other additional angles in it. We come in and add a plate in here, and this support plate that goes into that bulkhead then is steel, and a way to be able to tell whether you've got a side brace kit in it or not is it's magnetic, because the original one was aluminum. So people ask me all the time, how do I know if I have this side brace kit put in? And you say, well, just go up into that bulkhead where they show you, just put a magnet beside this long cutout here. If it sticks on it on the inboard side, it's got the kit in it.
Easy
Pretty
way.
simple to do. So we'll go over to the other side and take a
And
look.
is this the size of the torque tube that would be in mine, or that should be in mine? Because mine is way smaller
No,
than that.
the earlier ones were a lot smaller than that. And they updated as they went along, kind of, until they got to 1967. Then they changed design. This airplane is a 72.
Or much later.
Yeah, much later on it. I'm sorry, it's a 76, and it's much later. In fact, this is the newest style one because it has the supports here, and it's got 5/8 inch fork bolt in it. So the fork bolt is right here.
Is that where
that's what
common?
the fork bolt, and this is the 5/8 inch one.
And is that a common place where they would crack?
Yeah,
was
but
on
without this doubler in here, without this gusset in here, the torque is like this rotates back and forth. So this piece then twists in there, and it
that
would
makes
crack
sense.
along this weld in here and down this tube and then separate.
Because this is the piece that moves the entire gear, and
Yeah,
all
on
of
the
the
main gear.
torque for the whole main gear is on this
That piece,
one
right.
section. Oh,
So
yeah.
the drive tube is driving it here,
Yeah.
and then it comes over here, and this part goes out to the gear. So this kind of twists. It's got a twisting force on it. So when it fails, what it'll do is it makes kind of a spiraling failure.
Oh,
when it
whoa,
does that.
crazy. All right.
So be careful of your head.
Oh, wow.
So this has got the doubler that
Here,
existed
Silas.
out of it.
I'll let you come in here.
Yeah, out of it. The doubler used to be here, and it went to here, and it was aluminum, and it cracks up in here. And as Daniel said on yours, until we get that piece off, we don't know if this angle up here is cracked or not until we get it taken apart and look at it. So there's pieces up in here that are removed. There's like a angle doubler here. I don't want to pull it down because it's got it jammed up into here, but it goes in here. It's a closeout piece that goes in this gear well. And what you do then is come in and fit this doubler in. There's the angles in here. You put this steel piece in here, beef it up, and put new angles in. that
you
makes
go.
this a lot stronger, because this gear, then what it does is this landing gear piece here goes up, and on the far side, it goes up into this far side of this, and that's where it's bolted up, and that's what holds the gear down and locked.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And yeah, that's a lot of torque on that. If you do land sideways, all that gets
Right. This would be a
transferred
lot
right to
stronger if we had a wing skin across this opening, but we've got this big hole here for the gear, so this piece now has a lot more, is a lot thicker and has a lot more structure to it than the ones that would be in the wing on farther out, because it has to carry that load across this open hole. So instead of being a box, it's a C-shaped piece.
Wow.
If you look at the top of the airplane, the riveting comes down on that angle, comes down through it, and what we have to do is come in and remove part of this nacelle, and then you actually cut the nacelle sidewall to get into the riveting that goes down through the wing as it goes, and then we have to go back in and reattach that. We put an angle the other way, go in and put another doubler piece in there, then reinstall the. When it's done from the outside here, you can't really tell that it's been done from the top. Inside the baggage compartment or the wing locker, you could. Now in your airplane, this doesn't come out quite as far, so most of it we can take loose, so we don't have to cut that piece. Those are out in the open enough on the 310, earlier 310, that you don't have to do that cutout.
So with the damage that we've seen, does it look like this airplane was ever crashed?
I don't believe so, no. We thought maybe it might have had a nose gear collapse, and it's possible years ago that it might have, but I don't. This area in here is either from that or it has been reworked because of the keels, because these rivets are, you can see along the line of rivets some places that they're a lot larger than they were originally. So something went on. It is possible that it had a nose gear collapse on it at some point, but I don't know. I have not been substantially through the logbooks to ferret out every single little thing that happens. One of the things that we do with with an airplane like this is we'll come back and we'll look and see what year did they put props on it, or what year did they overhaul the engines, and then we'll start looking around at the kind of entries before and after that. You'll find that, okay, during the time they put the engine on, it's been down for 2 years and hasn't had an annual for a couple of years. You're pretty sure that it just wasn't the engine, it was like other stuff going on during that time. And they may or may not, log it. I've seen them put it in a separate little logbook.
What?
And somebody comes in and, that logbook gets lost, quote, and then one goes
No,
yeah.
that never happens.
Yeah, and so there's lots of things that can happen. So, but it's not substantially, and if it did have a nose gear collapse, it has been repaired pretty well, considering. These skins in here a lot of times are really just gruesomely bad, and when a nose gear collapses in it. But the gear doors and stuff look pretty good. The nose cone and stuff looks reasonably. A lot of times it'll chew off this nose section here when it slides down the runway, and when it does that, they'll put a used nose cone in it because there isn't any new ones, and they won't match at like gaps like this will not match this well.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah,
because these were hand built, so there's not machine parts that bolt together like a engine bolt together in it. So, and they did a reasonable job of matching it. But you can see there's like a rivet missing here, and there's a bolt here where there shouldn't be a bolt. So something was in. This has been off at least at one time. It's been off of there, but I'm thinking it's the same one went back on.
Okay,
it's possible. Let's put it that way.
All right. Okay.
But nothing else. The one thing that impresses me is that the tip tanks. If anybody is looking for some parts, if this goes to salvage,
don't speak like that.
The tip tanks are worth a bunch because they get damaged because they stick out there all the time, And these are in really good shape.
Don't speak
Really
like
good.
that. I don't even like that you're talking that way. When they take this off, the 12-year AD, what do they check? What are they looking for? And why was that AD created?
The AD note was there because that during there's been service bulletins and AD notes before. There was an AD note come out in 1975. 752308 was the AD number, and it applied to some of the airplanes, but not all the models that were turbocharged. And then in the mid-90s, let's say mid-90s, up until the later 90s, they started having in-flight fires. Exhaust failures had in-flight fires. They said something like 23 or 24 fatalities and like 5 accidents because of in-flight fires in like 3 years.
Wow.
And FAA told Cessna that, hey, we need to do something here about this. EASA, which is European Aviation Safety Authority, they said if US and Cessna is not going to do something, they're going to ground all their airplanes and make them take all the exhaust off, inspect it, and put it back on every 100 hours of flight. And so they got together and made the AD 2001-16. What they have found is what they would really like to have said was that each time you do an engine overhaul, you put newer overhauled exhaust on. But the problem was, how do you start that program?
That's why it's 12 years.
That's why it's 12 years.
Because that's for those out there that it's for it's the charter where you can make money.
Part
you have to have new engines every 12 years or TBO. That's why they put those on there.
Right.
So
and 2,500 hours was a time frame on the 402C that a lot of operators had as time extensions on their airplanes. So it was tied to the overhaul times of the engine.
That makes sense.
The problems become is that how do we start this? If we said in March of 2000 that we want to start this program, you'd have thousands of airplanes that would be grounded because there would be no parts left. So they had to phase it in over a period of time. But the paragraph G then says that the next engine overhaul is when you started this, and then after, it's 2,500 hours or 12 years, whichever occurs first. So you take these pieces off, and they didn't even allow it to be an inspection by an A&P or an IA or even a repair station. You had to send it out to a repair authority place that had exhaust repair or manufacture. So I think that there's maybe around 10 of them or so in the United States that can do that. And they evaluate it. It's not really, everybody calls it an overhaul, but it really isn't. The AD note says an evaluation. So if we send these parts out, sometimes they'll look at them and say, hey, these look pretty good. It hasn't flown very much in the 12 years. One part may say, okay, you can just continue on. So you got another 2,500 or 12 years. Other places, they'll say, no, we're just going to straight up get rid of it and start new. Some of them they will repair. So a lot of these parts in the 421, it's not very many parts. It does not incorporate these pieces here.
So the actual exhaust stack that comes off of the cylinder is not part of
it. It's the ones from the slip joints aft is what they call it. So here's the slip joints, and what we know from the slip joints is that these slip joints are,
look at that.
You know, it should slip pretty easily, but they don't. But these are so cheap, new, that you just buy new ones because to overhaul it's going to cost more than the new production ones. So they're around cheap all over the place. Overboard stacks are real important on it, and you're going to come in and have the overboard stacks inspected.
Now this is the exhaust pipe you see hanging out from under the wing, right?
This hooks up to the turbocharger up here at the top, and this goes over to the wastegate on it, and it's got like a flexible section in here in the 421 that lets this move, because obviously this moves different when it heats up than this pipe over here. If you had this solid, it'd snap right off. So that part is in it as well. This is the really important part. This is the turbo Y. What we try to do in a turbocharged airplane is get all the exhaust to go to the turbocharger. So the left-hand side comes into this one, the right-hand side comes into this one. This hooks up to the other side of the wastegate. This goes to the turbocharger. And what you'll find up inside of those is that you'll find that there's like a divider in here. And that divider started out being straight. It was straight across.
Oh, so when this exhaust was new, that was supposed to be
That's
nice and straight.
across. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. So with
You can
heat
see
and
what
expansion.
you can see what it is it's this plate here.
Oh, so that's just the plate that goes across, and these are two halves.
And those are two halves welded down to it.
Oh, whoa. Okay.
Okay, so those will crack like a lot in those areas, and they'll actually
makes sense.
block the input to the turbo, or a big piece of this will come off. You can actually see a piece there where it started, the welds start to separate.
Oh, right
on
here,
it.
you can see
Mm-hmm.
where it's kind of, the weld is cracking. Here, get over here on this side and see the back side of the...
So this
Oh, this whole
part
front is cracked right here too.
Yeah, the edges of it are
Here.
cracked. This thing, after being in there, you can see down inside of here too, that the piece is cracked down into there as well.
Oh, wow, yeah, I see that.
Starting
It
to
almost
come
looks
loose.
like it's just torn.
It started to come loose, wear off in there and just break loose in
Wow.
it.
Oh, you can see, oh, here on this side it's real obvious. Look at that.
Now people say, there's a lot of
Here, keep the
arguments.
camera. You see that down in there? That tear? That is supposed to be solid and flat.
A lot of people will argue the fact that, well, you don't have to be done except for every 2,500 hours. 12 years doesn't really mean anything. This pipe right here is nowhere near 2,500 hours. It's only maybe a third of that, and it's off because of the 12 years. But you can obviously see we can't inspect this with it installed until something really drastic happens on the inside. So the 12 years is important on it to do it. These are pretty thin, and they will go from having just some slight kind of like areas of corrosion. You can see where they've got like pinholes of corrosion in it, to burn throughs like in as little as one or two flights.
Wow.
So you can't really tell. You can tell where they are overheated is at the curves. It's like water running down a stream. It cuts out the bank on the opposite side, and that's where this will get impingement and be hotter in here. In the straight areas, you can see it's not so hot. It doesn't get quite as hot as it does in other places. So
Wow.
they call out for that, and like I said, it's an evaluation. This is the wastegate, so it's not part of it. It's just laying here. This is one side, down underneath is the other side on it.
Oh, yeah. Now I'm kind of curious to see what this other wire looks like. Oh, and see, this one's almost straight.
Yep, it's a lot better shape.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
It may have been replaced at they may have time continued this one at the last one, or not, but yeah.
Oh, that is crazy. This is significantly better shape than the other one.
Right.
Whoa.
They don't really, these Ys and the 421s, they don't repair very much because they're so complicated that by the time you'd rip it all apart and try to repair it, it's just easier for them to build a new one.
Yeah.
And it from scratch, because you don't, as it gets, it'll get carbon inclusion in it, so it's very hard to weld and do good welds in it. Where new, fresh material welds easier. These are a product called Inconel, which is a high nickel.
That's the metal I was trying to think of, yes.
Right. Yep. They're high, really high nickel, so they're hard to. These are hard to form. They're also would be harder to weld. It takes a pretty special weld guy to do that. You wouldn't do that in your garage with a Lincoln stick welder that your grandpa gave you.
That's right.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Thank you for helping me understand what we're looking at. And it's kind of neat. And this is why they have those, because this exhaust right here was definitely on the downward slide of the dangerous side of it.
Right.
So this is Marla with TAS, and she has brought out 19 pages of 310-ness. Now, what is not in here is some of the parts because we don't know. And my understanding is the elevator, were you able to get a rough
We were
guesstimate?
able to get an estimate
Okay,
on the
you got an
elevator.
estimate.
It's some fuel lines and things like that are kind of unique that we don't know.
Oh, okay.
So they're not significant, but there's
In the grand scheme
cost.
of this,
Right.
just how many numbers is it five digit or six digit?
It's a 6-digit number.
Yeah.
In that 6-digit number, you, Jimmy, brought some customer discrepancies to us that are not included in that 6-digit number. So we got to talk about whether those are ones you still want to do, or whether
Hang on.
those are things
Something
we
got in my
can
throat all of a
bypass.
sudden.
Yes.
All right,
So-
my eyes literally are watering right now.
Right.
Okay, all right. So just hit me with it. What's the initial estimate number?
The initial estimate number, I have to get to the back page, is 441.2 hours of work.
Okay.
So parts, outside labor, and shop labor is 106,812.04 initially.
Wait,
$106,812.04. It exceeds TAS's typical annual by 441.2. We think a new annual's 400. It's 441.2. It's a pretty hefty outfit.
it's a pollen or something.
Do I need to do the Heimlich?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on, give me a second here. 106,000 and change. I mean, we're just gonna round to the nearest thousand. We're in airplane world.
Okay.
So, and that is not including a handful of parts and some other discrepancies. Call it an even 110.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Oh. Hold on a second. The total, what's crazy, so what's going through my head right now is the total value of the airplane on a good day is about that. I mean, that's a really good day.
That's a really
110 would
good
be
day.
a fantastic day,
That's right.
value-wise for this.
I don't know CPR.
No, this is more hyperventilation, I think, happening.
Okay.
I need a bag.
Should have brought the paper bag for
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Okay. Brain's trying to, okay, slow down, Jimmy. Ask smart, logical questions. I'm curious, what was the estimate for the elevator? What's just that one section right there? Because that had to be a pretty big chunk.
Give me a minute. I need to look.
Yeah.
I do think I know the number, but I'm unsure. This is not the easiest place to look at a 19-page work order because I don't
know.
want to drop it all over the ground.
Here, we have a work 100 and, well,
Let's be very careful with our precious workspace.
yeah.
That is not the one I was thinking of. That is the torque tubes. Let me just do rough numbers.
Yeah.
The outside repair to reskin the elevator is around $20,000,
Okay.
and they're going to be plus 6 weeks to make it happen.
Okay.
And then it will have to be repolished, this lovely polish that you've brought to us, and that's going to take us another chunk of change.
The big numbers are the main gear thingies, structure,
The side brace.
side brace, that roughly.
I have not
Ish.
memorized all of the.
Well, you haven't memorized
I have
this.
not
Come on.
memorized it. I have not. I should have, knowing that I was going to be in this position, but I
And
did
nothing
not.
like doing this on she
camera.
didn't know she was
Yeah,
going to be on camera either. And I'm like,
absolutely.
oh no, you can't give me that news without it being on camera.
Side braces. The side brace is roughly $14,521.07.
And 7
And 7 cents.
Don't forget the 7
That
cents.
is going to be the kit plus the parts. However, that's missing parts because there are parts for that side brace kit that are not available.
Of
So,
course.
so a little bit of education, okay? Side brace, ME 76-2, affects all the electromechanical landing geared airplanes here, except they would be before serial number 2 of the 340. So after that time frame, all the 310s, but not all the 340s. In any case, SK41480 is the wing mod kit. That kit's the basic kit for every airplane, and every model has different parts that they have to add. This has singularly the most parts to change out. And the uplock hooks have to be updated to the new style uplock hooks. After the 310L, they all had those style uplock hooks.
So that's the hook that holds the gear itself.
That's the hook that holds the gear itself.
Okay.
Those hooks are not available.
Perfect, of course not.
So conquering that problem would have to be something we would do, and that those prices are not there because we haven't conquered the problem. Plus, there's a few other angles that are no longer available. Some can be built, some cannot. So, and some can be used, and some cannot. So that's not a complete number for the side brace kit, nor is it a complete solution because we can't get the uplock.
So 15-ish plus.
Correct. 15-ish plus.
Okay. So we got 20 back there, 15 there. There's still a huge number missing. What's the great big gigantic
there's
number?
There's a little bit of number here and some nose well corrosion. And that's a cleaning process where the brake lines and the nose well corrosion.
That's all the scat tubing.
Yep, and I think they probably showed that to you.
Yeah.
The nose keel problem. That's significant.
Oh, the big brace thing that they got that's cracked right now.
That's cracked, and there's no parts for that. We're going to have to make all of those things to get that correct. There's a kit that was likely needed, and we're going to have to search for that. Not added in here. But between those two discrepancies, you're talking an additional 35 hours of time. So it's roughly $5,500 for just those two discrepancies. So those two little nose things, about $5,500.
$5,500?
Mm-hmm. Just in labor, no parts.
That's only $5,500.
That's only $5,500. 15 hours for the corrosion at $2,500, and then 20 hours at about $3,200.
So we're missing like $60,000 somewhere.
Let's just keep on looking. There's more to go. There's more to go. So, lots of what I call death by a million bee stings. A lot of little things. When you're talking about a total number of discrepancies that are 127 discrepancies, if you had 1 hour on each of those, that would be 127 hours. And we know some of those are much more. So there's a lot of death by a million bee stings there. But down here at the end, the right wing skin crack is another 8 hours. Again,
for behind the engines, there's those couple of cracks. And there's one on each side.
Right. So that's going to be 8 on each side.
Gotcha.
The flap and the control cables are very out of rig. So you're going to have a full flap rigging. Okay. So full flap rigging in this airplane could be done in 8 hours. In the higher level airplanes, the R's and so forth, it takes as much as 12 to do a full flap rigging.
Just to rig the flaps?
Just to rig the flaps. You don't want to get caught in flap brouhaha.
Yeah.
Where you make a mistake and you got to start all over. Everything is intertied. It's not an easy process. So there's 8 hours in flap rigging.
That's true. And then the gear itself is what, 12 or something?
And the gear itself is 12.
Yeah.
So you've got some stuff
Just a
there.
huge amount of hours.
Plus then the bigger hours in the repolish, which would come back. That's about $9,700 that we quoted to stand there and repolish because we're not polishers.
Yeah,
so you've got polishers that you can bring to the table.
We'll be
bring
like,
them on over.
Hey Brandon, we need you. We need you over here.
Come on over to Defiance, and we will welcome you with
They
open
might have
arms.
a location somewhere around here. I'll have to look into that.
You would have to look into that.
Because there's another fingerprint right there. Now, the internet I can't.
Yeah,
Sorry,
just wipe that.
I couldn't bear
that off.
to do that myself.
Wipe that off.
Yeah.
But our big items, landing gear and all the landing gear issues, side brace, cracks, all of those things, elevator issues, and then our nose keel problems and the associated nose damage. So all the way through the airplane, those are the big deals. Plus then you add the other normals.
And I mean, all of that is, I would never in a million years want to sell this to a new owner knowing that stuff is there because...
How unfair.
How unfair. And it has to get done. It's not a...
Right.
Well, in that, the elevator back there, that's kind of an important thing on an airplane.
Landing gear's kind of important. I think we
You know,
learned that
landing-
in one of
yeah.
your previous videos. That
Yeah,
landing
well,
gear's
you
kind of
know,
important.
but that is a nice motor in there, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's
beautiful.
shiny.
Beautiful shiny motor.
Might be able to sell that on eBay.
Yes.
Oh, man. Okay. So. It's 100. And that's what, realistically, after all the smoke has settled and everything, $125,000 is realistically. If I was to put a budget to say, let's make sure this thing is just absolutely dialed in, 125 grand.
Right. And you can trade out that 60 hours of polishing with somebody else, but you're going to pay for it somewhere.
Yeah.
So there's a trade-off in money. Maybe it's slightly less. Maybe you can save, but you know that's $10,000 that you can take away. That's still $96,000.
Yeah.
It does bring it down to a five character number, though.
You know, I love your optimism.
I do.
That's what I love most about you.
It does bring it down.
Eternal optimism. That's why we get along so well.
There you go.
Okay, so and I asked Tony, because nobody told me that number. This is the first time I've heard the number. But I did ask him if this was going to be safe to fly on a ferry permit to some, like maybe it goes back to Florida with me.
Right.
While I curl up in the corner and cry for a long time or something, I don't know. Or there's some other world thing happens here. Or, I mean, the options, we parted out. Mm-hmm. Even in parts, this thing isn't even worth that much in parts. I've got a lot of thinking to do.
And remember, if you decide to go ahead with what we've presented you, we have some challenges to leap.
That's true. Yeah, we can't even find half of the stuff.
How we're going to answer. I think we have options, and I think everything is surmountable. That's my optimism.
Enough money and time.
That's right.
Yep.
But we do have challenges that aren't reflected in that 6-digit number.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Well, honestly, I'm glad you guys found it. I'm glad that it was brought. We've had how many years and how many different very experienced mechanics, everything else didn't catch a lot of this stuff.
That's right.
Boy, I've got some heavy thinking to do. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Wow.
Well, if there's anything we can answer, don't hesitate to ask, and we'll dig up the answer that you need.
Fantastic. Marla, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You can keep that. You can just use that to start a fire later or something.
No fires in the shop.
Yeah, no fire. At home, in a fireplace.
That's
somewhere.
right.
Yeah,
roast some weenies.
That's right. Yeah.
There you go.
Awesome. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank
All
you.
Right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This could be the final chapter of Save the 310. The whole reason I was selling it is so I could pay for that airplane and all the repairs needed for that. And I just can't bring myself to part this out, chop it up like the Elvis jet or something like that. I don't know. Man, what a story it's been though. The adventures that Silas behind the camera and we had from California all the way out here, fixing and modifying the airplane, the engines, the avionics, taking it to Oshkosh and having it on the cover, the opening right when you open the magazine. That was pretty special. Had lots of good experiences and a couple of bad ones. Sometimes it's not about the airplane. It's about the memories. It's about how the world gets smaller and the adventures, places and things you can only do because of an airplane. It makes no sense. And I guess that's why pilots are as crazy as we are, and they're my kind of crazy. Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
know what? I saw your videos, and they really touched my heart. And these things, like, they deserve to fly.
Did you really think I was gonna part out and chop up this beautiful airplane? I've got a different shirt for that. When I posted the video about buying this airplane, a guy named Jason got a hold of me. He used to fly this airplane, and he said that it was used for medical transport with an organization he belonged to. Also, I learned that in Australia, it was also used for medical transport. So how cool is that?